Windy with bright spells and showers. There's a risk of thunderstorms and spot flooding. Highest temperatures of 17 to 19 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, as obnoxiously passionate about soccer as Frank Lampard after the final whistle. Gamble responsibly. See Dunlewy.net.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Welcome into the Football Show on Off the Ball. Still to come a little bit later this hour, we will be looking forward to the Europa League final. That is Sevilla against Inter. We will be joined by our Italian football expert and the man who's written the book in English on Italian football, Forza Italia, Paddy Agnew, at around about 9:30. We'll talk about Inter's run to the final. Can they potentially contest the Scudetto with Juventus next season, and the revival that there's been in Italian football in Europe this year, with Atalanta getting to their first ever European Cup quarter-final. All that to come after 9:30, but our focus now very much on the League of Ireland champions Dundalk, who have not had the happiest of times since returning from the break. They've been in poor league form. They went into the Champions League qualifiers last evening again Hungary, up against a team who had never played in the Champions League qualifiers before, and were beaten 3-0 by NK Celje. And unfortunately for Dundalk, it means they now have to prepare for the Europa League qualifiers in round 2, which will come up in a couple of weeks' time. We're joined by Stuey Byrne to take a look back. Stuey was on commentary on the game last night, and I would imagine just very frustrating for the Dundalk fans last night, Stuey, who would have been watching on that game in Hungary, because realistically, if Patrick Cuban takes a chance, they go 1-0 up and they're looking good in the game, and then defensive mistakes just hand away 3 goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very, I can't imagine how they must feel. Well, I kind of can. I've kind of experienced something similar before as a player, but I mean, the way they were beaten must really, really hurt. Because, you know, anybody watching the game, it was never, you know, a one-sided 3-0 defeat as the result would have suggested. I felt Dundalk played very well in the game for the most part, but ultimately, you know, part of playing extremely well or playing at that level is that you have to be able to defend at a high level as well. And it just seemed to be one of them nights where they made, I'd say, 2 mistakes in the game. And the big one was really the first one, the first mistake in the first half, where, you know, 10 minutes before half-time, always a key time in the game where, you know, mentally you need to be focused. You know, the legs start to get a little bit tired with the heat. You're thinking about half-time and a possible tactical change. It's 0-0 at this particular stage. You're playing very well. You've created the better opportunities in the game. Duffy could have had one. Garton had hit the bar. And, you know, possession-wise, I think the stats were something like 65-35. So you're confident in them, you know, and they look really strong. And then, out of nowhere, just a lovely little, you know, slide rule toe poke by Lottritz, the skipper. But Kerrin, who's the outside left, has read it really well. And Garton, who's in total control of it, just can't move his feet for whatever reason. He's just that yard slow. And then you can see he's panicking. He's trying to get his body in front. He loses balance. And it's just, you can see it. You kind of see it happening in slow motion. You know something's coming. They're in trouble. Is that kind of
like a slight mental switch off? You think you've got the ball controlled, and the next thing, whoop.
I think that's what's been happening to them at the moment. They've just been a yard off defensively, just, you know, not reacting as quickly as you would like them to think, not anticipating as good defenders would do. And they are good defenders. It's just something's happened, you know, and they're not anticipating mistakes. Even Sean Gannon, the fullback, was never even close to covering Gartland, although it's a calamity of errors. And then even when Kerrin gets in and gets his body in ahead of Gartland, he gets the, you know, kind of scoops the ball, doesn't get much of contact on it. And then you're thinking, well, Gary's going to save this. You know, he's come out, he's closed the angle down, he can get a good strong foot and no problem. And even he can't seem to get his feet right. And it's you can look at it in 2 different ways. You can look at it and say, you know, it's just bad luck, whatever. But I just don't believe you can be that unlucky, you know, at that level. I think there is a certain element of responsibility that players have to take on themselves, that they just haven't reacted right, or they haven't switched on the way they would normally do, haven't anticipated, as defenders should do, that he's true on goal here, or whatever the case may be. And unfortunately, the way it is at the moment for Dundalk, because of their league form hasn't been great. That gets inside your head. You know, when you concede, even though it's well within their capability to get back into the game, they've been the better side. And then when you look at the second half, right from the get-go, they're by far the better side. But the one thing I would say about this Shelia team, which just for the co-commentary, I had to have a look at them at a few games they had played in previously. I saw them playing against Olympia Ljubljana 4 weeks ago when they won the league. They drew 2-2. They have a really nice temperament about them, and they just get on with the game. Like, you know, they don't get involved in too much. Maybe a little bit of mind game stuff, you know, going down, holding your ankle, all that kind of lark. But nothing. Not an overly physical team. Don't overly moan. Just have a nice temperament about them, and they just seem to kind of go through the game without any real incident. And that's kind of the way it felt last night. You could
they were clinical too. Like, once they were clinical,
yeah. They were absolutely. And even when they got the second, they were going looking for a third. You know, it was a bizarre game to do commentary on. It really was. I was just scratching my head. I was good at it as well. I mean, even when I was driving home last night, I was just sick, because it kind of brought back memories for me of similar type games, where, you know, I knew we knew we were the better team, but we just, for some reason, got caught cold. And it tends to happen in Europe, because in Europe you come up against real kind of quality players that can punish you for the slightest mistake. And that's exactly what Kieran did last night. He punished Dundalk for what was not even an awful mistake, just a kind of a slight mishap, a slow reaction, and he's in like a light, like, you know. But that's the goal for me. That's the goal that killed them, really, because I think that plays on their confidence. That knocks their confidence. Even though they did sort of pick it up in the second half, and they were able to maintain that level of possession and passing that they had in the first half. Just lacked quality, especially in some of their deliveries. Lacked the clinical finish. When you think Duffy's had a wonderful chance where he slipped down inside the full back and the right centre half on his left foot. He's 8-9 yards out from goal, even though he's on the angle, and he doesn't even hit the target. He just completely pulls at it. Lee, he had a similar chance as well, where he couldn't get the ball out of his feet from 7-8 yards out. And then, of course, Hubin's header, who I think he's expecting to get a clatter off the goalkeeper, and he kind of just gets something on it, and it hits the bar, and you're starting to say, Jesus, is it one of these nights, like, you know? And that probably gets inside the heads of the players. But they can't, you know, unfortunately, you don't get time to feel sorry for yourself in this game, especially at this stage of the season where we've only just gotten going. I mean, there's so much football for them to play for. There's all the league stuff that they're still in the hunt for. I know they're a bit off Shamrock Rovers and Bows at the moment, but they're still well capable of pulling themselves back into that title race, and they're still in Europe as well. And there's still an opportunity for them to lick their wounds a little bit, sort out a couple of things, because things aren't right, regardless of what you say. Internally, something is not right, and they're going to have to rectify it quick.
It is difficult to find that form, though, you know, given that their post-lockdown form has not been good. They had to fight back against Waterford last week before playing against this game. Difficult fixture coming into the trip to Hungary. Now they've got like a week or two to just settle themselves before they're back out for the second round of qualifiers for the Europa League. It's a big ask to turn your form around ahead of that. Yeah,
that's the worry. This is the problem now. All up there, completely. You know, it's how do you get that negativity out of your head now? You know, these guys are now starting to doubt themselves as players. Are we as good as we think we are? You know, did we really achieve all those things in Europe in years gone by? Have we really, you know, were we really that good when we won our league titles? I've been there as a player, and the only way to get out of it is just to play your way out of it. And sometimes you need to go into a game and you just need the manager to turn around and say, no tactics, no real system. I'm not going to give you any real information on the opposition. Just go out and play. Just go out and show me you want to fight for the jersey, and you want to get, you know, you're hungry to kind of win things and get yourself out of this rut. And they can only do it together. And the fact that the mistakes are being made by different players, you know, would tell you that it's not really one individual or whatever. It's a collective thing. It's a group thing, and it's a group mindset. And that's the only way they're going to get themselves out of it.
Noel from Dublin in contact on the text 53106. Lads, the problem with Dundalk is their forwards and their defence. They're blunt up front with no composure. If Dundalk take any of those early chances, it's a very different game, and they could have cut the opposition apart in the break. The midfield were well on top, but the defenders, when they had to defend, couldn't. Is it as simple as that? That issues both ends? No,
they're good points. I mean, they're good points, all right. I think he mentions the fact that the midfielders played very well, very good ball retention, good possession. That there was times, especially in the middle first half, probably 15 minutes to 30 minutes, where they were really good. Possession really good. They were running rings around Shelia, and I think Shelia started to drop off a little bit and say, give them a little bit of respect. But I do agree that once they got into that final third, there was a lack of the options you'd like to think they would have. Maybe Houben was a little bit isolated at times. The quality of deliveries from the wide positions wasn't as good as you would expect it to be. There was one occasion where Duffy done really well down the left-hand side, and he had McElhaney and Houben both, bursting into the box, and it needed that early delivery with his left foot, and he hesitated, and they've gone beyond the ball, and he's ended up putting a ball in behind him, and it was that kind of stuff. So it's decision making at the wrong times didn't go well for them. I think when Gannon does put a really good delivery into the box, Duffy's able to get a header on it, and you think he can do better from that. But they didn't have that cutting edge, I would agree. But sometimes you don't always need that cutting edge. You might just need a little bit of luck to go for you. But ultimately, when you look at the chances that they did create in the game, they were definitely worth a goal. And I think what happened was, because they didn't get that early goal, and because they conceded the way they conceded, it just planted a seed of doubt in their own minds, and that commitment just wasn't there. And you look at Duffy's chance in the second half that I spoke about, just not fully committed to it. And then Lee's chance as well, again, not fully committed to it, just hesitating, snapping at things. That just tells you that that's not 100%. It might be 90%, but at that level, it has to be 100%.
Yeah, when it comes to this confidence in terms of what they're trying to achieve, the bar was kind of raised 4 seasons ago when they get to the Europa League group stages, and the belief would be that was there to be built on. I'm sure when their investors came in, that was the hope, that this is going to be a team who are consistently in European competition, because if you invest in a club, that's how you make money with a League of Ireland club, is a run in Europe.
That's exactly it, yeah. And I think people have to remember that as well, and have to commend Dundalk for what it is they're trying to achieve. They're not trying to buy their way to winning league titles. They are genuinely trying to make a step forward in European football. You have to be extremely brave to do that, and you have to take risks. You have to invest. You have to try and get in the best players you can possibly get in, and that's what they're trying to do. And I'd hate to think that there's people out there wanting to see them fail because, aren't they lucky because they've got investors and they're throwing money at it. That's not what's happening here. There's a calculated effort here to invest in the game and bring the game here up a level at a time, year in, year out, and to try and make that step forward in Europe, because it only takes one team to make that breakthrough. As you've seen the way Dundalk did a few years ago, the financial gain that they had from that year was huge. But unfortunately, the falls are big. If it doesn't happen for you, it's a long way down. It is a long way down. But I still think we need to have clubs like that in this league, because we don't have too many of them. At the moment, we've got Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers, who are trying to do it. And Rovers, of course, are coming up and they're playing European football, and they will try to make that step forward as Dundalk have done. But we don't have very many others, because we don't have investment in the game here. The game is, financially in trouble. It needs investment. A lot of people will argue, well, how should that investment come into the game? Different clubs have different ideas about what that should be. But for me, I come from the mould that we need the likes of Dundalk pushing the boundaries, pushing the standards on the pitch, which they have done. I think it's worth remembering that, for me anyway, the quality of player on the pitch, the physical conditioning, the technical ability has gone from there, it's gone right up there. And I think Dundalk and the standards they have set and what they have proven have been the one thing that have driven those players on to kind of to push themselves to a better standard. What goes on off the pitch, I don't really care too much about, to be quite honest with you, because I'm very much an on-the-pitch person. I think, you know, what you can achieve on the pitch is huge. It's there, you know. It's especially this year, this is why, like yesterday was frustrating. It's a one-off game. If they win that game, they're into a completely different level. You know, they're into a level where they've got another Champions League game or a fall back to the Europa League, and I think you're looking at possibly 1.2 million they would have got from going through. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened. But there's a backdoor option. They still have another go in Europe, but they do have to get things in the camp right. Otherwise they're going to be in trouble again.
When it comes to that investment, Stewie, Dundalk weren't particularly busy back in February when signings were being made for the new season. You could probably argue, particularly with some of their contracts up at the end of the current campaign, that maybe it was the time to freshen up a little bit. They didn't go huge into the transfer market. Was that a mistake on reflection?
I thought in the off-season, and I felt even listening to Vinnie at the end of last season, that I was expecting to see a big change in personnel at the club. I thought he was making a few sound bites that he was definitely going to freshen it up. I don't have any information into the goings on at Dundalk when it comes to the transfer market. But I just felt that he definitely wanted to get in possibly 4 or 5 players of a certain calibre, particularly European calibre, and unfortunately probably wasn't able to do that. Now, in saying that, timing's probably gone against him as well, because he's brought in Idoa, he's brought in Kolovic. Kolovic came in February, and by all means was firing at the time, and he was. I think it would have been a perfect opportunity for him to kind of get a couple of months under his belt with Dundalk, and then go into Europe, and I think he would benefit from that. Obviously, COVID hit in, and everything was ground to a halt, and that looks like that's had an effect on the squad. You know, for whatever the reason. And can you really put blame? I don't know. I mean, we're seeing all sorts of odd results around Europe. I mean, you only have to look at Bayern and Barcelona. It's just bizarre.
Because realistically, when we went to summer football, the whole idea was that the League of Ireland clubs would be quite a bit into their season and almost at, you know, full tilt when they went into Europe. That's not happened this year, because they had months of layoff, a handful of games, and then you're directly thrown into these European qualifiers. That advantage that there may have been from summer football before has, in this very strange year, been taken away from them somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't buy much into that myself, I have to say. I mean, summer football came in when I was a player, and I think it definitely benefited the players here at the time, because I think it was 2002. Certainly, when we were playing in Europe at the time, we were probably tactically, technically not as good at the time, just a little bit below what we were playing against. But we were fitter, we were as fit, and that bridged a certain gap. But I think as the subsequent years went on, and I'm thinking 03, 04, and thinking of ourselves in 04, I think we definitely became technically and tactically much more aware. I think we became much more experienced in how to play in Europe.
Did that just come from experience? Because you had a few big ties.
Oh, no, it did. Absolutely. It comes from experience. And do you know what? It comes from getting turned over by better teams as well. You learn from being beaten by the better teams. And that's the only way to learn. You know, that's the way we all learn. We learn from making mistakes, or, you know, we learn from losing particular games. And that's how I felt I developed as a player in Europe. So I didn't put as much emphasis on the fitness thing. I put more emphasis on my tactical awareness, technical awareness, just my own mentality. Because there was a fear factor there before. You know, you go into these games thinking, you know, look at these guys, they're all 6'2" and they've got great hands and they all look great. And I don't mean to joke about it, but like there was an inferiority complex going into those games. But we banished that, and we banished that pretty much by picking up good results, by starting to beat these teams, by then getting to a stage where we were going into these games as probably the favourites. And that's how it happens. And even look at the Dundalk, they went into last night's game as the favourites. You know, they had the greater European pedigree. They had the more experienced players, but they weren't able to capitalise on that. And ultimately, they've gotten done by by their own mistakes, you know. And I'll give credit to Shelley for being, you know, for taking advantage of those mistakes. But ultimately, the goals that they gave away were mistakes, and it's as simple as that.
Self-inflicted blows. Let's hear from Vinnie Park then. This is what the Dundalk boss had to say after last night's defeat in Hungary.
Really, really hard to take. I mean, this scoreline is awful reflection, but it's not a true reflection, but that doesn't matter. The players, I thought, were outstanding tonight. Really, really brilliant. Fair play to them, and ultimately that result is at my door, not the players. The players were brilliant. You know, very difficult position with them tonight, but they were brilliant, and full credit goes to them.
We're operating at the highest level, and unfortunately just can't make mistakes like that. Yeah,
that's the way it goes. I mean, we've conceded some goals in Europe that you get punished at the highest level, and lads were punished tonight. But as I said to you, I'm not going to criticise people. Just immense men there. What they've done for this town over the last 8 years, I'm very proud of them. Very proud of sort of my association with them, and you know, c'est la vie. It's a disappointing night, and got to take it on the chin.
I don't recall a Champions League game we've ever played in where we controlled the second half as much until the ball just wouldn't go in the net.
Yeah, I would say to you, I feel I set the team up right. I feel we understood exactly who we were playing against. I feel all of that stuff. I wouldn't change anything, so therefore, you know, I've got to look in the mirror, because there's not a lot I would change in that. I would have changed the last couple of weeks, obviously, the build up to it, but not a lot you change in that. I think if Pat scores, we'd go on and win the game, and probably. But look, if I'm not willing to change anything about that, then, you know, I've got to look in the mirror then.
Very reflective, Vinnie Park, saying he has to look in the mirror, Stewie, after what happened. I mean, given the way things have gone, the fact they've fallen, you know, double digits behind Shamrock Rovers in the title race, given that they've lost this game, there's a lot of pressure now on Vinnie Park at this stage with the way they've restarted the season.
There is, yeah. He knows that. I mean, you know, when he took over the job, it's not like it's back in 2012 again, where they came from. He took over a very, very professionally run football club, especially on the pitch. He took over a club that had earned the right to be the best team in this country. They'd earned the right to be considered a team with good European calibre. You know, this all, you know, this is not news for him. So he knew what he was taking over, because he was part of it, of course, as well. So he knows there's pressure, and when you've got investment as well coming into the football club, the way it's coming in, there's pressure. Pressure's a good thing. I always felt, you know, you need to be under pressure, otherwise things can go a little bit static, a little bit stale. I think sometimes players need to embrace pressure, otherwise they'll find it very, very difficult to kind of go from one level to another. But I think what he's trying to do is take the pressure off his players, ultimately, because he knows there's so much football still to be played. There really is. And I think he's trying to be protective of the players. You know, he's alluding to the fact that the players have done such wonderful things for the town, which they have. And again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think Dundalk have set a standard in this league that the rest are still trying to get to. They haven't gotten there yet, and they're still trying to get there too. And for that, we need to remember that as well. Unfortunately, part of me kind of knows where he's coming from as well, because I kind of had it myself in my playing career, and then even in my sort of current position in media, is that you always feel like you're trying to convince people, and even convince people within the league that we're good enough, and that we deserve to be where we are, and that we can reach these certain heights in Europe. But it just seems to be a constant, you know, you're swimming against the tide all the time. And after the result last night, that's the first thing that came into my head. I remember just putting my head in my hands, and I was kind of going, oh no, this is just playing into the hands of the naysayers and the doubters, who just want to see, who I'm not going to say they don't want to see this happen, but they're dying to have a go at the likes of Dundalk and Rovers because of the investment model that they have. Like, you know, maybe that's natural, maybe that's envy, but I still go back to what my feelings are on this. I think we need to have that, you know, otherwise I can't see how the game in this country is going to progress. And and you only have to look at what Dundalk achieved back in 2016. It wasn't huge investment that got them there. It was those players, it was those players in that football club. And maybe everyone just needs to remember that again. Maybe they need to remember that. Maybe they've forgotten. Maybe they've forgotten that. It's not that difficult sometimes, So I hope to get back on the horse again. I have to say, I haven't given up on them. I'll never give up on clubs trying to kind of step up to that next level. And
how far are Shamrock Rovers off that level now? Because they put themselves into a wonderful position now in the league. We'll see how tight bows are going to stay, the two rivals between now and the end of the season. But Rovers are well placed to win the league. I'm sure it's in the back of their mind that they'll feel they left the league behind them last season, given the position they got into. They've had that investment from Dermot Desmond. They've got really good players at the club currently. They can't be too far away from getting to that level now.
Not that far away, yeah. But the key for them is doing it year in, year out. And that's the reason why they didn't win the league last year, because they basically fell off a cliff in May, which, what you need to, in order to win league titles and in order to be playing at the highest level and to be making these breakthroughs in Europe, you have to be consistently at a level week in, week out. It's very, very difficult to do that. To do that for a whole season, to do it year in, year out, 4, 5, 6 years in a row, whatever, very, very difficult to do. And it takes huge dedication, but it's coming for them. It is coming for them. It's up to them whether or not they want to do that, and the only way they can do that is by making progression in Europe, which they've got a game coming up now next week, which I feel I would be very confident in them going through, because I think even their European, the way they've acquitted themselves in Europe, you can see year on year out just getting better and better every year, and had a great result last year, and I felt that they'd certainly stepped up a new level. Then winning the cup for them gives them confidence that they can go and win competitions, and then that's starting to now rub off on their league form, and they are now the most consistent team in the country at the moment. But they have to prove it. You have to go and win things, or you have to go and make that progression. That's the only way, that's the only way you're going to do it, and that's the only way you progress.
Yeah, Rovers, also Bows and Derry in action in the first round of the Europa League qualifiers next week. Dundalk have to wait to play in the second round of the competition. The draw will be made for that in a little bit. Also, another year text, big fan of Dundalk, great to see them advance, but in many ways they've become a victim of their own success in the last decade. Every time they build a winning team, they've lost some of their best players, and they also lost their manager Stephen Kenny to the international setup. We'll take a short break. We'll be talking to Paddy Agnew about Italian football when we come back.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. More confident than United before a Europa League final. Gamble responsibly. See Dundee.net.
Lunchtime Live.
I honestly believe if we cannot get our kids back to school safely, then those of us that are vulnerable, those of us who require very special education provision, will not have a life. Now, I'm at the end of my life, and I do not want to live the rest of my life locked up. I'm sorry, and I don't see why I should.
Hear the full Lunchtime Live podcast at newstalk.com and on the Newstalk app.
When it comes to reviewing your finances, a good place to start is by reviewing your mortgage. It's something few people ever do, but if you never review your mortgage, you'll never know if there might be a better option. That's where the Ulster Bank mortgage team could help. Wherever you bank, be sure to talk to us and see if switching could make a difference. Just search Ulster Bank Switch. Ulster Bank. Help for what matters. Over 18s only. Ulster Bank Ireland DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Full-time, part-time and online study at CCT College Dublin. Specialise in subject areas like networking, data analytics, Java or Python programming, cybersecurity, DevOps, project management, computerised accounts and many more, including government-funded graduate conversion programmes in AI or data analytics. CCT College Dublin. Our dedication, your journey.
Take one stunning location by the sea. Add a watermill, 2 windmills, a craft shop and museum tour, a wonderful cafe, a pinch of sunshine, and you have all the ingredients for Skerry's Mills. The perfect family day out. Get there by train, bus or car. Parking is free. Find out more at skerrysmills.ie.
Has your car insurance increased this year? Stop. Don't pay it until you call Sheridan Insurances. Our friendly team of experts are here to speak to you and understand your needs. We search over 15 insurers to get you the best insurance policy, leaving you more time and money to enjoy the important things in life. Shop local. Call Sheridan Insurances today. Sheridan Insurances Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Join the switching revolution at Carphone Warehouse today. Get the Huawei P40 Pro with free wireless headphones for only $99.99 when you switch to a €60 a month plan with Vodafone. Or upgrade to the Huawei P40 Pro Plus, available exclusively in selected Carphone Warehouse stores or online at carphonewarehouse.ie. Carphone Warehouse, for the best deals on your mobile TV and broadband. Offer subject to availability and 24-month contract.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. A more electric team-up than Salah and Mane. Gamble responsibly. See Dundee.net.
You're very welcome back to the football show here on Off the Ball. Tomorrow evening, Sevilla, the record 5-time winners of the Europa League / UEFA Cup, go up against a team who dominated the competition in the 1990s. Inter, who won the competition on 3 occasions and reached the final 4 times in that decade. They're back in the final, the first Italian side to reach the Europa League decider since a change to that competition back in 2012. Delighted to say we're joined on the line by Italian football writer and author of the book Forza Italia, Paddy Agnew. Paddy, good evening to you.
Good evening, Will.
Paddy,
good evening to all our listeners.
This Inter team, Paddy, they're a bit transformative compared to the Inter of the last few seasons. Finished second in Serie A, albeit Juventus won the title and kind of eased up in the last few weeks of the season. But they're free scoring, the best scoring Inter team since the 1950s. And they go into this final in tremendous form from the knockout stages.
Yeah, no, this is a turnaround. If you look at Inter's most recent form in Serie A, in the last few years, I was just checking it out before I came on. You know, they're fourth this time last year, fourth the year before, seventh the year before that, eighth the year before that. So they a dramatically better performance this year to finish just 1 point behind Juventus, even if Juventus, as you correctly said, eased up a bit at the end. This is a terribly significant game for Italian football for many reasons, but above all, I mean, I was thinking as I was waiting to talk to you guys, I've been here since the mid-80s. I was there saw all those UEFA Cup finals you were talking about in the 90s when Inter, and those were the days. Those are the days when the best referee in world football was probably Pierluigi Collina, and Collina used to complain they could never get to referee a European final of any sort of shape because there was always an Italian team in it. You know, well, times have changed because for the last decade, since Inter, no less, under Jose Mourinho, collected the treble, won the Champions League in 2010, there hasn't been an Italian side in any final. So this is a really important moment for that reason. It's also a really important moment for Italian football in the shape. This is, in recent years, a number of the Italian clubs have been bought over by outside money, which is for a very nationalistic setup like Italy has created shockwaves. So you've had the Elliott Foundation now owns AC Milan, the Americans. The Americans, in the shape of Dan Friedkin, the new owner of AS Roma, and Inter, owned by the Sunning Corporation. This is going to be a very important. They've owned it since 2016. This is an important moment for them because it'll be the first. If they win, it'll be the first trophy they win. But it'll be it'll basically put an end to the speculation that you can only win Italian football if you're Italian. You can only have a successful Italian team if it's Italian-owned. That will, go down the drain as a concept if they manage to win.
And Paddy, this Inter team doesn't necessarily play with a very strictly Italian style either. I mean, Antonio Conte appears to have learned from his period in international management, even his time at Chelsea. And when you look at the recruitment, he went to sign players that he knew from the Premier League that have come in to have an impact this season, probably none more so than Romelu Lukaku, who's been absolutely remarkable up front for them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Will. I'd also add on to that of Premiership players have been very influential. One of the best buys of the January transfer window was Ashley Young, the former Manchester United player. He's had a terrific game as a left-back, left-side midfielder. But yes, Lukaku has been he was one player that Conte insisted on. He argued long and hard to have Lukaku, and Lukaku's delivered. He's scored 23 goals in Serie A, but what is the important thing about him is that he scores goals in the important matches and the big matches, and he's looked very, very sharp. And he'll be leading the attack tomorrow night with Lautaro Martinez, the Argentine, and they're a very powerful. They are very powerful pairing up front. As for does he play a different type of game, a non-Italian game, I'm not so sure. I wouldn't buy that entirely. He plays with, and I'd be playing tomorrow night, I'm almost certain, with his 3-5-2 formation, which is very much what he had with Italy in the 2016 European Championships. And it's a classic enough Italian system in the sense that you've got a very solid defence, carefully protected by a solid across-the-field midfield, and you are quite happy to let other sides come at you for a while. What is different about Conte, and what he has learned clearly, is he's quite willing to play the game quite high up the pitch, which Italian teams have traditionally not wanted to do, and he has absolutely insisted. I mean, the one thing about Conte is anybody who knows about Conte is that he is relentless hard worker. He insists. He's the first thing he had to say when he took over Inter this time last year was blood, sweat, and tears, lads. I mean, that's where he comes from, and he showed that with the Italian team in 2016. It wasn't by any means the most talented Italian team any of us have ever seen, but they came within a penalty kick again into the semi-finals. So he can get a team to play, and he's got this lot to play, and he's been helped by one thing, and which is he seems to have got his physical preparation for this right, because whereas a lot of the teams that didn't have a break, i.e. not the French teams, not the German teams, but the others, Juventus, for example, looked a bit tired and jaded at the end of the post-COVID season. His Inter, who played more games than anybody, are looking very, very sharp. And they seem to have settled into exactly the formation he wants. And I would think, that he's just been saying, football's a bit like history. It's the winners who write it. So go out there and win this game tomorrow night, lads, and you'll be writing history for yourselves. I think Inter are very much up for it. And I would give them a great chance.
Yeah, their pressing was relentless. I watched their second game against Bayer Leverkusen, and they really, really put pressure on the German side. And again, similarly with Shakhtar were able to play a bit of football the other night, but Inter were able to pressure them in the right positions and look really good on the counter-attack. I was reading too, Paddy, that Conte leads from the front on this one, that when he goes to training sessions, it's not unheard of that he'll jump in on a five-a-side and he'll show players how he feels that they should be pressing too. So despite the fact the years have advanced a bit, that guy who was a star midfielder for Juventus is still there, it seems.
Oh, yeah. I know Conte quite well. He's a fantastically... he's in the classic line of obsessive coaches. And for example, he caused on the last night of the season, the Serie A season this year, when it was clear that Inter had done well by all intents and purposes. They finished just 1 point behind Juventus. They won their last match. He made gave an extraordinary interview to Sky Italia, live TV, minutes after the final whistle, saying, there have been all sorts of people jumping on the bandwagon here, have done nothing all year long except get my way, and this club hasn't protected me properly and hasn't protected my players, and what are they doing? Things have got to change around here. And, the sort of thing which dirty linen being washed in public, the sort of thing which the football world hates and Italian football hates even more. But Conte's like that. He just, he shoots from the hip sometimes, and he does things like that. Perhaps a little bit like Mourinho in the sense that he takes the pressure off the player sometimes by becoming the focus of media attention himself. But he certainly is not frightened to to say his mind and call on his players to match up to his expectations, which are very serious.
Is there a little bit of a political side to this too? Because this Inter team have got their best points total since Mourinho won the treble back in 2010. So they've delivered on the pitch in terms of results. They could potentially win themselves a European trophy tomorrow night. If that's to happen, is Conte maybe putting pressure back onto the board here? I'm guessing that he'll probably want to spend a bit of money between now and October.
No, you got absolutely will. That is what he's doing. He doesn't. He had to battle to get people like Lukaku last year. And he's proved that was an inspired choice. And now, if his things happen, as you've just said, if he wins the trophy tomorrow night, then he'll be looking for basically almost a free hand, an English manager style a role when it comes to the transfer market. And basically, I'll decide everything. And you lads, you can drive the bus, but other words, let me get on with it. I think that's what he was saying, all right. There was a lot of speculation that he wants to get away from Inter now, and that he was doing it because Juventus might be looking for a new coach, etc. But Juventus weren't looking for him as the new coach, as we know. They've appointed Pirlo in the meantime, and he was just doing it to flex his muscles to make it very clear that he wants to do, as you've just suggested, control the transfer market and control everything else about the way the team is run.
What kind of company is Antonio Conte like when you meet him then, Paddy?
Lovely. I met him, before the European Championships. I remember meeting him on the plane up to Turin. He was just about to go to Chelsea then, because remember, after the European Championships, he went directly to Chelsea. And I said to him, buongiorno, Mr. Come andiamo. And he said, I am going well. And I said, oh yeah, trying to learn your English, are you? And he started laughing. But I mean, no, he's if you say to him things like, I said to him, I remember saying to him before the European Championships, do you think you've been it looks like a very ordinary squad by Italian standards, the squad you've got. Surely you could have found some more, there was some more talent to find somewhere in Italian football there. I looked at him and said, well, you tell me. I've looked up and down, but this is the best I can come up with.
One of those players who's been really good from this season, Lautaro Martinez. It would seem at this stage he's probably going to stay because Barcelona have these financial issues that have come around with COVID. I think the Barcelona president said yesterday they haven't spoken to Inter since June. He's been really good. Again, over 20 goals. He's added a huge amount to the team this season. And it looks like they're going to keep him around for another year at least. Yeah. No, I mean, the successful end to the Serie A season already suggests that not very much is going to change in terms of personnel. So you're going to have guys like Lukaku, Martinez up front, Gagliardini, Barella, Brozovic in midfield, De Vrij, Ashley Young, Godin, Skriniar in defence, Handanovic in goal. I think all of those players stay, and they're a very, very strong squad. And they're definitely a squad good enough to win Serie A, and they'll be good enough to do well in the Champions League. Indeed, they should have done much better in the Champions League this season than they did. Remember, this is a side which in the qualifying rounds of the Champions League were ahead away to both Dortmund and Barcelona in two of the early qualifying matches, and the side just didn't have the experience to hold on to those situations. But they have improved as the season's gone on. They've added a lot to the baggage of the experience. I think they're going to be, whatever happens tomorrow night, they're going to be a very serious side next season. You mentioned potentially them going for the Scudetto next season. Was there much surprise around Italy when Maurizio Sarri was dispatched of so quickly? I know the expectations at Juve had to be high. Like, they left the Coppa Italia behind them. They got knocked out, and embarrassingly so, against Lyon in the round of 16 in the Champions League. At that point, was Sarri no chance he was going to stay once they were out of Europe?
No chance, I would say. It was fairly obvious. It was, and indeed, as we saw, the Juventus wasted no time. He was sacked the next morning, wasn't he? Sarri had two terrific seasons with Napoli, and the season when Higuain scored 36 goals and was a record, and they played some wonderful football. And the Juventus belief was that in taking him after he left Chelsea and appointing him, that he would come up with that type of champagne football, as I like to call it. That he really, very fast one-touch football, which obviously you'd like to think has Guardiola's Barcelona as its inspiration. But his Juventus never came near all that. And one of the reasons probably is that his Juventus has to be built to a certain extent around Ronaldo, and Ronaldo is not the sort of player who fits into that mode so much, and you have to keep looking after Ronaldo and feeding Ronaldo and pass the ball to Ronaldo, he also was having to work with a squad which he hadn't put together himself, and anyway, he didn't deliver as the Juventus. Both the Juventus fans and the Juventus directors had hoped, and it was just a matter of time that the Juventus are in a strange situation where winning the league title for the 9th time this year, frankly, didn't matter a damn. It was just ridiculous. What matters to them, and we all know, was doing well in the Champions League. And going out to Lyon was not doing well in the Champions League. So. They were willing to forgive some less than impressive performances in Serie A. It didn't really matter because it was a bad year in Serie A. There was nobody else played really continuously well in Serie A, and therefore they wanted faute de mieux. When they got into the Champions League, there were one or two sides that can still play a bit. Juventus directors looked at that and said, okay, bye-bye.
Andrea Pirlo comes in. This is quite the baptism for him, Paddy. He goes from retiring from football. He thinks, I'm going to start my coaching career with the under-23s. I'll ease my way into this. A few weeks later, he's in the top job.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right, yeah. And starting under-23s would look to you and me and everybody else like a very sensible way to do it. And indeed, I'm not sure what he himself really feels about having been plunged in. But it's asking. Pirlo's the Pirlo that I've met and talked to occasionally over the years has always struck me as a very serious, very smart footballer, but very taciturn guy, and very. Reserved, by no means flamboyant, by no means outspoken, and you wonder how a guy like that will do as a coach. What is true, though, is that he was a wonderful player. He's hugely respected by by the players, and sometimes wonderful players can seem to move into position of wonderful coaches overnight. Guardiola did it at Barcelona. And if you're a Juventus fan, you just have to hope that Pirlo is able to do that. We'll wait and see. He's got a problem. One big problem he's got to deal with at Juventus is you're almost in a situation now where he's going to have to decide between Ronaldo and Dybala, the Argentine. Dybala was easily Juventus' best player of the year. He was probably the best player in Serie A last season. He's probably a player who, if you had to name one player who was vital to them holding on to their title, you would say it was Dybala. Ronaldo will be 36 next spring. Are you going to continue fashioning the side around him, or would it not be wiser to fashion the side around the young Turk, the Argentine? In that case, are you going to do the unthinkable, commit heresy and sack, get rid of Ronaldo and base yourself on Dybala? That would certainly be an indication of what way he's going to go as a coach. If he takes an important decision like that, it would be amazing.
Yeah, it's a huge decision they have to make, because I got the feeling when they signed Cristiano, Paddy, they were signing him at a time where they knew he was getting into his 30s. By the end of that 4-year contract that they handed him, it's probably when his powers are going to start waning. From a physical sense, he's not changed at all, but you have to accommodate his football to a certain extent. And I always got the feeling with Chiellini coming towards the end, Buffon coming towards the end, Ronaldo coming towards the end, the Juventus were taking a gamble that they could win the Champions League in that period while Cristiano was in Turin. Yeah.
Well, you pointed, but it's not just Ronaldo. Chiellini, perhaps even Bonucci, are the important players coming to the end of their time. But the most important is Ronaldo. I would say this about him, that you can't point to any game in which he hasn't given his all for Juventus, and he's done what Juventus asked him to do. He delivers goals in really important matches, and particularly important Champions League games. But 36 next spring, the doubt is always there. Can he keep going? It's not. I mean, Paolo Maldini played on until he was 41, but as a left back, Dino Zoff played on in goal until he was 41. Gigi Buffon's still playing in goal. I mean, at 41, that can be done. But if up front, I mean, can he keep on? He's absolutely bionic the way he's playing. He's managed to maintain his level. But even he, you would think, the cracks will appear.
I wonder at this point, with Lionel Messi potentially leaving Camp Nou between now and October, whether Juventus might be tempted to try and put a bid in there, because it was audacious to take Ronaldo away from Real Madrid when they did.
Yes, absolutely. The speculation here is it's not Juventus, but Inter, who might be trying to get their hands on Messi. Everybody's convinced that Messi's going to abandon Barcelona any moment now. But the Italian team would like to do it's Inter. And that would certainly, if I say that Inter look really equipped to do well next season, if you added in Messi to that, they're obviously the favourites straight away.
I think from a very selfish point of view, I'd love to see Messi and Ronaldo together at some point. Just before we go, Paddy, I want to ask you about Atalanta, because I think they won a lot of people's hearts and minds in the way they played in the Champions League this season, particularly what they did to Valencia over the couple of legs to qualify for the quarterfinals for the first time. Very unlucky against Paris a couple of weeks ago in the quarterfinals too. They're a very, very interesting side to watch.
Well, I think Gianpaolo Gasperini, the Atalanta coach, is simply the best coach. Italy's got a great generation of coaches. There are a heap of fantastic coaches, Contes and Mancinis and Ranieris. But the best of them at the moment, to my mind, is Gasperini. What he's done with that side has been absolutely fantastic. Because he's much more than someone like Conte, he has brought a different mentality to Italian football. His side looks sharper, looks fitter, plays a more intense game. Fabio Capello says he's one of the few teams that in Italy that plays a Premiership rhythm and intensity, and they show it sometimes in the pitch. I felt my heart bled for them the other night against Paris Saint-Germain, because perhaps the single most important player they've had over this last 3 or 4 years with tremendous success is the Argentine Gomez, Papu Gomez. He's really a wonderful, wonderful player, but he was injured in that quarterfinal, and he did not deliver. Then the other absolutely inspirational player for Atalanta has been Ilicic, the Slovene. Now, he got into a huge depression during the COVID lockdown, and couldn't get his head together, couldn't get his act together, and he wasn't even on the pitch against Paris Saint-Germain. But my feeling was that Atalanta would have won that game against Paris Saint-Germain had Gomez not been injured, not had to be taken off, they might well have won it had Ilicic been there as well. I mean, they're not a side that has got a huge squad, and missing those two players in a game like that was just too much.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. As you say, it's all teed up for a very interesting Serie A next season. Enjoy the Europa League final. We'll see if Inter can move on to 4 by winning their first Europa League tomorrow night. Paddy Agnew, thanks a million for joining us from Italy.
Thanks very much.
And just before we go, reports in the last few minutes claim that Vinnie Park has tonight left his role as Dundalk's head coach. Those reports are yet to be confirmed by the club, but for more you can check out otbsports.com. I'll be back with you tomorrow evening from 7 p.m. We'll preview Katie Taylor's rematch against Delphine Pursoon. Stay tuned for Tom Dunn after the news at 10. Good luck.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. More confident than United before a Europa League final. Gamble responsibly. See Dundee.net.
Give him a ball and he out of grass. He'll give you a move for the perfect pass. Give him a ball and he out of space. He'll give you a move with godly grace. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. He's a nice young man. It's a lovely smile.
At Guaranteed Irish, we believe enterprise is at the heart of thriving communities.
Did you know Gem Pack Foods have been making baking a piece of cake for the people of Ireland since 1960?